YouTubes! Welcome back. Today we got Carlos the Zombie Werewolf here. I made him last year. I want to do some upgrades on him. I do have some videos, some really short videos on how I made him last year when I first started my channel, so I'll link those on his little playlist down below for the Werewolf playlist. What is Carlos? He basically just a weak Home Depot skeleton. I had bought a werewolf head, a brown werewolf head skull off of, I think, Lord Grimley Manors for like 12 bucks or something like that. And last year at Home Depot, they had these little ground breakers that I got for, I think, $12.50 a piece on reduced right around Halloween. I bought one before and a couple after. So I took the skeleton hands off of Carlos's body and I put these hands on these feet. So I've got bare feet and I've got a nice set of hands on them. And this is a little zombie skull. Oh, hey, it still works. That's pretty shocking. I'll be damned. Still works after being in the box for here up on a shelf somewhere. So these are Carlos's hands and feet that I just tricked out and put him on his skeleton. So he's been sitting up in the rafters since last year Halloween. He's looking a little bit shabby. I want to do some upgrades on him. I made a tongue for him. Last year it's out of polymer clay. I just made it out of pink polymer clay, Sculpey. And I went ahead and drilled some holes in it and I brushed it with DevCon so it's nice and slimy, and then dry brushed it with some green. So I want to give him a diseased, nasty tongue to match that meth mouth he's got going on. I want to slap a tail on Carlos too. This year when I was out at Menards and where was I at home, they had all these little snakes and stuff. Well, these snakes are actually pretty cool. You can take apart, for the longer ones, you can take apart the little vertebrae, and it's got two screws that kind of sections around the little loop they put on a thing. So you pop those off and man, now you got a bendable, posable tail. So I've got some fur left over from Carlos. I'm going to wrap around this. We're going to put a tail on him. And I want to fix his face. He's got some tears in his face because it's just corpsing. So that's the kind of split, the wind, the rain, whatever. So we're going to fix all that today with some UV resin, just like how I did my rat's mouth for the plague rat. And I also want to make a nice big spike collar for Carlos. I got some spikes poured up. I got a piece of sheet metal left over from my cauldron build, the ring that went around my demon summoning cauldron. So, man, let's throw this guy on the slab. Let's get busy and give Carlos here some upgrades. Get him ready to go in the yard today. Okay, YouTube, we're back. We got Carlos assuming the position. I've got a bunch of fur left over from last year when I made Carlos. I went to Joann's and I found a half-price sale on the fur. It was like, I think, $15 a yard. So I bought 2 yards, got plenty of left. I found a little scrap that fit Carlos's tail. Again, he's just one of these Menards little snake skeletons that I got. We're going to use this as a tail, so it'll be posable. I found a scrap that fits it, so I'm going to go ahead and get this snipped out. I'm going to use a razor blade to cut it, because if you use scissors, you're going to cut across that grain, you're not going to have the shaggy fur hanging out. So I want to keep that fur. So I'm going to razor blade this out, leave a couple of holes where the bone burns through so you can see him, so he looks all gnarly and nasty zombified tail. I'll glue it up when we get back. We'll glue the fur onto the table, we'll put the tail in him, and his zombie tail will be done. Okay, YouTubes, so I went ahead and brushed the whole fur with the contact cement. I went ahead and brushed his tail too. It's been about almost 10 minutes. We're going to go ahead and lay this in there where we want it. I got a couple of holes cut in the middle where the little vertebrae will show through. I want a little bit of that tip of that tail sticking out of the end. And we're just going to fold this up like a little fur taco. And again, use gloves because this is already sticky. You're going to get hairy fingers, and then you'll end up going blind just like your mama said. So let's make us a little fur taco and fold this over. I'm not worried about getting goo on the fur. He's a zombie. More goo, the better. So we're just going to fold that over. Get it in there. Come on, Carlos. Give us that little fur taco and wrap it around. So we got that little tip of bone sticking out. I think that's really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and mash this down. And I want to take the heat gun. I'm going to find our little holes. Right here you can see the little vertebrae sticking through. And I'm going to open those up just a little bit. But first I'm going to mash this down. I think that's cool how his tail is sticking out of the top. I really love that. So we have us a zombie werewolf tail. Let me clean some of that goo off these bare spots while it's still pliable and I can move it around. Alright. A little bit here. You can see his vertebrae. Alright, so we got us a zombie werewolf tail. Now I'm going to go back and hit the heat gun with just a little bit, because with this synthetic fur, this stuff will pull away in a heartbeat real fast, so you don't have to take much. Then again, you can do it as much as you want to if you wanted more. So we'll hit the tip of his tail a little bit. Yeah, see, it's already getting kind of gnarly and shrinking down. See, right here in his tail. Open this one up a little bit. And that one. Alright, we got us a zombie tail. That's cool. Alright. I'm going to go ahead and mess with this fur a little bit. I'm going to brush it out and comb it. I've got a screw that I'm going to go get the screw gun. I'm going to go ahead and pick a spot on this rear end. I'm going to put the tail in, cut a hole in his pants, and we come back. Carlos will have a tail. Alright. Alright, folks. Carlos has got a tail. Looks like he had a blowout. We got a little extra room back there. But we're good. I like that a whole lot better. I'm going to get his pants on. We're going to flip him over. I'm going to put a zip tie back here and put his belt back on. We're going to flip him over, and I want to do his face where all his tears are. We're going to fix that next on him. Okay, YouTubes. So Carlos has got his tail on. He's feeling pretty fly. Now, he's been sitting up in the rafters for a year, and this is probably from last year. He's got these little tears where the corpsing got real thin, which I'm not a fan of. I want those little thin strands there, so we're going to use a epoxy resin, and we're going to fix that. So let's go to the bench, and I'll show you guys what we're going to do. Okay, YouTube, so to fix Carlos's face, instead of using hot glue because it's going to melt in the sun, it may freeze up and snap off in the cold, I've got some UV resin. I'll try and link it in my Amazon supply list below. This is what you get. It comes in a black bottle so the sun doesn't hit it because it will harden up. And then you just need a little black light flashlight or a UV flashlight. So it's just like a purple light. This is what cures the UV resin. So what I want to do is, I'll show you guys, you can just make a couple of lines. Make them however you want. Make them long. You can make them thicker. Do a heavy line. And I'm going to go ahead and cure these. Let's see if I can. Alright. So we'll cure these guys. And this will harden it up like a UV resin. And we can go ahead and glue this on as slobber, as snot, as whatever you want. And it usually only takes a little bit. Depending on how much resin you use, the thicker or the thinner. You see it's already kind of hardening up. And then since we're on a silicone baking mat, okay, it's better to put it on a clear background because the red will absorb the UV rays, so it's that fast. So we cure it, and then I can go ahead and put this on Carlos, put it right over his torn skin, and UV resin it back on, hit it again, and it'll harden up and be like a hard plastic that won't get destroyed in the winter. It won't pull away. It's not hot glue, but this UV resin is super cool stuff. And this is what I use to make the drool on my swamp rat. You guys, so I just connected a piece of thread. I could have used this method too. Just glue it down to the table, or make your blobs on the table. Go ahead and resin it down, cure it, and then pick these off and glue them right onto your prop. So I've got some UV slobbers. I'm going to go ahead and take these over to Carlos and glue him on, and this will fix all the rips and tears in his skin and his face. Okay, so we're back at Carlos. We've got our cured little UV resin icicle. I gotta get rid of these gloves, man. Oh my god. I'm just going to go ahead and put a little bit of more UV resin on. Let it run down. Then I'm going to stab the icicle in where I want it. And this will help reinforce that plastic that's already there a whole lot better than hot glue or silicone or something else. A little silicone will be fine. But then we'll have a nice solid bond that he can be out in the yard, and we got a nice little slobber look. So I'm going to go ahead and fix the rest of his little tears. Get one by his eye. I may add some of those other ones I made. Get his mouth fixed up. When we come back, we're going to put that zombie tongue in Carlos's mouth. And I want to put some DevCon around his eyes too while we're doing the tongue. Okay, YouTube, so we got Carlos's tears all fixed. I'm happy with them. I went ahead and got his zombie tongue I made out of polymer clay a while back. It does have a wire that runs through and wraps around these little skewer sticks that go in the back of his throat. I've got 2 holes drilled back in there. We're going to use good old DevCon epoxy. I love this stuff. It dries clear. It may yellow over the years out in the sun, but I don't care if his mouth looks yellow. That's awesome. So it's a real easy fix. You just snap the tip off. They give you a little mixing tray that's actually the bubble package. So we're just going to squeeze a little in there. I'm going to try and get it even so it mixes well. Okay, we'll call that good. We'll cap this back up for later use. Alrighty. Now usually you can use a popsicle stick or a brush. I like to use something that's firm at first, because with a brush trying to mix this stuff, you may not get it all mixed up all that good. So you'll see that it's kind of kind of a milky consistency, and that's fine for DevCon. We're going to go ahead and take his tongue. I'm going to pile on a bunch on the back of his throat. I don't care if it's sloppy or nasty. It'll cure in about 5 minutes and start to harden up. So I'm going to put some on the bottom of his tongue too. And we can always go back and then add more once we get it in his mouth. So we're going to call that done for now. Got his tongue all goobered up. We're going to slide it in there. Come on, Carlos. Where is your holes? Alright. We're going to kind of position the tongue, sticking out just above his lower canines, which I think is awesome. Okay, we're going to let him sit like that. I'm probably going to go ahead and, well, hell, I might as well do that now. While this stuff is all mixed up, I got about 5 minutes. I want to put a nice little glossy coat on his eyes to give him that wet look. Even though he's a zombie, I want that really wet look for him. And this will really only help to keep him in his head, too. So once you're all brushed out thoroughly and you're mixed with the stick, let's just go ahead and put a coat over his eyes to make him look nice and wet. Give him that undead, creepy look out in the yard. And we're just going to brush around. Alright, I'm digging that. We're going to let that sit and smooth out on its own. And then I'm going to go back and probably do a second coat. I'm going to brush the back of his mouth again to really lock that tongue in there. Oops, see, I'm starting to move it. And I mean, with this stuff being wet, I mean, you could brush teeth, you could brush lips. And again, it's not hot glue, so it's not going to melt or change, you know, with the conditions in the sun or the snow or the ice that we get here in Indiana. So I'm going to mix one more up. I'm going to go ahead and wet in his mouth and glue some underside of his tongue. And when we come back, we're going to work on his collar, man. I want to put a big old nice spike collar on this guy. Okay, YouTubes. So I got the strap I'm going to use for Carlos's collar all cleaned up. Just a little bit of oxidation on it was all it was. So I'm going to steel wool because I'll probably prime it first before I do anything else to it, or when it's done. So my plan is I'm going to go ahead and put this around Carlos's neck. It's pretty bendable steel, pretty pliable. I'm going to use that as a strap. I went to the hardware store and I found one of these little cable ties. You bend like a clothesline or a cable back on itself. I'm going to use that as the latch and then wrap the other end over it. So I'll just drill a couple of holes through. I'll put some washers on there and secure it so that we get a nice little loop for some chain to hang off for Carlos. A couple days ago I went ahead and took some Smooth-On 325 resin. I used the silver mica powder and poured up a bunch of silver spikes in my spike mold. Let me see if I can get one of these guys out. So that's pretty cool. I got 10 of them. I don't know if I'll use all of them. So my plan is to lay these out after I get it wrapped around Carlos's neck, drill some holes in there, drill right into the spike, and that'll attach him right to the collar. That way, it'll look like he can't tear his own collar off with these big spikes and end up tearing his hands off. And then I want to go ahead and paint these guys with some mirror paint from Krylon. It'll be super shiny and look like actual polished silver. So that way it looks like it's a silver collar on his neck, so that he couldn't tear it off because he would end up tearing up his hands and hurting himself because it's actual silver. So that's my plan. I'm going to go ahead and bend this around Carlos's neck. I'm going to try and get some holes drilled and put this latch into place, get it to fit him real nice. And then I got to go ahead and pop all these spikes out and getting the bottoms shaved clean so they're nice and smooth. And we'll get this collar built to get it on Carlos, and then I'm going to put him out in the yard and find a place to stick him for Halloween. So I'm going to work on this thing and I'll come back and I'll show you guys where we're at. Okay, YouTubes, so things are going good on the collar. Got it wrapped around Carlos's neck. I got it snipped off where I wanted it. I think I'm ready to go ahead and put the trial fit this little guy in. Let's get it on in there. Alright, I'll put the bolts on the back side, and that'll lock it in place. I'll put a piece of chain dangling from the front, so we've got our basic collar design. Now that we got all our little spikes, I'm going to go around and just mark. I'm not even going to measure them. I'm going to put them where I want them by eye. So I'm going to make a little mark. Make a little mark. Make a little mark. I'm just going to eyeball them all the way around where I want them. I'm going to drill a hole in this collar. I'm going to flat sand the bottom of these guys. That way I can put a screw to the back side and it holds it in place. And we can take this thing outside and we'll paint it that silvery color. And then we'll get it installed on and see what it looks like. Okay, YouTubes, we're back. Carlos's collar is basically done. I went ahead and took all the little spikes and flattened the bottom with 80 grit, drilled a little hole inside. I did use some E6000, a little bit on the back, put a spike down, ran a screw through it, so now we're all screwed in all the way around. We're good to go. I cut a piece of black plastic 3/8 chain, and I put the little retainer on the bottom for his collar, so it looks like he snapped his chain and got loose. So my next thing I think we're going to do is we're going to paint this thing. It is bare raw metal, so I'm going to go ahead and use this satin charcoal gray 2X cover to hit the whole thing, and then I'm going to go ahead and paint it with the silver on top of that afterwards. So I'm going to do that now. When we come back, we'll have a silver collar with a broken chain dangling from it. Okay, YouTubes, we're done. The mirror paint is dry. The last thing I did to Carlos was I went ahead and put a fresh coat of paint on his little pegs. His legs are foam filled and pegged in, so they just stab in the ground. And he's on a Home Depot skeleton, so he's got really weak joints, so I'm going to have to use a shepherd's hook on him. But I'm going to put the collar on him now. We're going to get him out in the yard. We're going to display him. We're going to take a look at him and see what he looks like in the yard. Alright, here he is in all his glory. I got his little chain on him. I got a big skull I got from Myers a few years ago. I think it was like 50 or 60 bucks. I got him crouching down there by the big skull. We got his mouth all fixed up. We got his custom tongue in place. His silver collar looks great. The busted chain looks great. He's got thrift store clothes that I built him with years ago. Got his bony zombie tail hanging out. I do have a shepherd's hook in the ground behind him, bungee corded around his waist to hold him, to keep him in the crouch position. But I think the spikes look great. I love the contrast of the bright silver against his darker shirt. Man, I'm pretty happy with him. I think Carlos is going to chill here all the way through Halloween. Got his mouth all fixed up. Went ahead and epoxied his teeth. So I'm pretty happy with his upgrades this year. I think he really needed them. He was kind of looking shabby after last year. But man, I'm really happy with him. He's in a nice crouch position. And he's got a big fat freaking skull in front of him. So overall, I'm pretty happy. Okay, YouTubes, Carlos is all upgraded for this year. I'm pretty happy with him. We had a lot of cool changes this year. Should last for a bunch of more years. And if you guys get a chance, go check out my brothers in the Trio of Terror. Vic over at his channel, Monster Misfits, and Dave at the Weird Kid Show channel. Guys, we're doing Halloween all the way through Halloween and then beyond. So we're going to keep on putting out builds. Go check our Facebook pages, at Cobwebs and Candlesticks, or the Trio of Terror Facebook page. Go show us what you guys are building, man. We want to see what you guys are uploading. We want to inspire people. I want you guys to keep on building with us and just keep pushing Halloween this year, man. It's not canceled by far. I'm just starting on my display. I'm going to keep on adding every week and putting more stuff on the yard. So look forward to the next video. I'm glad you guys stick around for watching. Thanks so much for helping me and Carlos get his upgrades and stuff. It was pretty cool. I'm digging him. This can be his home for the next 30 days. So I will see you guys again. Until I see you next time. Keep it evil, man. Just like Carlos the werewolf.